Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases, unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business, you'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
Your body isn't a problem to fix. It's a system to support. From PMS to pregnancy to menopause. Ollie's Women's Wellness line is built on real science for every stage. No guilt, no stigmas, just science-backed supplements that work with you, not against you. Choose science over shame. Find support at a retailer near you or on ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting Creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
What's going on, everyone? What's happening? It is Jay Scott. It is the Hook Rocks, the ultimate rock community podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. We always do appreciate when you stop by. Don't forget to write us a review when you're done. We appreciate those as well. And don't forget to check us out on pantheonpodcast.com, a great music-related podcast platform with all different types of music-related podcasts, including the official Metallica podcast, the Metallica Report. You can find them on Threads, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Pantheon Pods, and you can do the same on all four of those with the Hook Rocks, as well as the Hook Rocks website, thehookrocks.com. So please check out all those, and also don't forget to set your app to automatic download so you get the latest episodes right to your phone. We've had some awesome episodes this year. The last month has been crazy. We had Michael Anthony, the former bassist of Van Halen. We have Pete Dankelson, the great inspirational guitar player, the social media influencer that he is. He's got a new album coming out in June. We also welcomed Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, celebrating the 40th anniversary of Stay Hungry. And of course, the legendary Lita Ford. And we've got another great guest, a return guest, a guest that I always look forward to talking with because I love his music. I love the stuff that he's been doing. And he's got a new album out called Electrified. Him and his band, Tyler Bryant and The Shakedown. It is Tyler Bryant. What's happening, man? How are you?
Hey, man. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you too, man. Always great to chat, especially when you got new music. And I got to tell you, been listening to the album. It's a great album. First question I got for you is, did you use a different setup on the album?
Well, my setup is kind of always evolving. It's no secret to anyone who's close to me that I'm just like kind of obsessed with recording and the art of engineering and trying to get the sounds in my head onto records. And so, I'm always looking for an excuse to pick up a new microphone or preamp or something like that. And so, a lot of the setup was the same, but also I've acquired a lot of new stuff. Like I was lucky enough to have Elvis Costello come over and record a vocal in my home studio. And before he came over, I thought, well, damn, if Elvis Costello's coming over, I'm going to buy a Neumann U67 microphone. I always wanted one. And then I was like kind of kicking myself. I'm like, why did it take Elvis Costello for me to buy a microphone? Why did I not believe in my own music enough to buy it? But like, certain things like that have, I think, really helped contribute to the sonic richness of what we're working on.
Now, was that something for your album or was that something for Elvis Costello?
It was something for him. Yeah.
Okay. That's pretty cool, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. It was a great honor to get to record his voice and hear such a legendary voice coming through my speakers, and also, as someone who's really passionate about engineering, to kind of feel the pressure. Cause when I'm recording myself, it's like, if I mess up, then I just kind of go, oh, you big dum-dum, but if I mess up recording Elvis Costello, then I I'm going to think about it when I'm trying to go to sleep, and it's going to go, come on, man, you should have done better. So it's always fun to get to work with new people.
How is the studio going? I mean, you talked about, with different equipment. I mean, last time we talked, you just started the independent label. And then before that, I think you were talking about the studio. You'd done the pandemic album. I think that was what, Pressure?
Yeah.
During the pandemic. How's that evolving? Let's start with the studio.
Well, so the studio has evolved tremendously since Pressure. I mean, at this point, for all the nerds, I've got upwards of 40, different analog preamps and stuff that I can, because I'm really fascinated by old vintage tube gear and stuff. Like actually, I got this broadcast console that I believe had the lion's share of its life was spent in Chicago. This old radio console that's been converted to use for recording, and it's a beautiful piece of gear, and just stuff like that. I've acquired a ton, and pretty much every time I do a record, I whether it be for the Shakedown or another artist, I always buy a piece of gear to add to the pile, and I can remember like this piece of gear was for this album, and this contributed to the sound. Sometimes it can be as small as a tambourine, or it can be as big as a set of speakers, or but my home studio has really really evolved, and I was counting the other day. I've made like 14 albums in this humble little basement studio, and the reason I started counting is because my wife and I are in the process of building a huge recording studio for ourselves. It's sort of like been a dream of both of ours to have our own creative space. And, with Rattleshake Records, I've kind of been working with my bandmates on this idea of sustainable rock and roll. And through producing other bands and, getting to work with Larkin Poe, and I just produced this album for Ruthie Foster that I'm so proud of. And, having, chance encounters like, oh, Elvis Costello is going to come over and sing a vocal. I think it's going to be really inspiring for us to have a headquarters for our two respective bands to work, but also just being able to contribute to the rock and roll community in Nashville, because I like recording. I think of recording oftentimes like taking Polaroid pictures. It's just like capturing moments, Oh, cool. You look great right there. Boom. Now do that again, or you did it and I got it, that sort of thing. So it's, there's a lot of plates spinning as far as all the recording stuff goes.
That's awesome. I love the evolution of it, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, the Pressure album was the first time you guys did that, or it was fairly new where you guys recorded in your home studio.
It was, man. And so the Pressure album was engineered by this guy named Roger Allen Nichols, who's one of my biggest inspirations, just, as a person and as an engineer or a songwriter. We've co-written a lot with him over the years, and he kind of came over, and he has this really sort of punk rock approach to creating a lot of times that I really relate to. And he kind of opened the door, for me to be like even more curious about certain things. And I think after we made that Pressure record, I pretty much drained my bank account and went and bought some more gear and microphones. And then the next project I did was this acoustic record for Larkin Poe called Kindred Spirits. And that turned out sounding pretty cool. And then, we made Shake the Roots, and that turned out cool. And then the next thing it was like I made a record with this guy, Frankie Ballard. And then we did the Blood Harmony record for Larkin Poe, which ended up winning a Grammy. And then we were Dirty Work, and it's just sort of kind of evolved and evolved and evolved. And, I've proven to myself that it's something that I really love to do. And, so yeah, now it's like, rather than just having a house that has a studio in it, we're building like a full on studio, because I'm looking at it going, man, I'm really proud of what we've accomplished with this space that's not intended to do what we're doing with it. And imagine imagine what we could do with an intentional space, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the studio, like you said, man, it takes the Polaroid, but more importantly, like for you, doing the albums that you've done, especially with the band, it it almost it's like a keeper of the files of evolution for you, right? Like you start with
Man,
Pressure, and then you go
yeah.
Shoot the Roots, and now this one, and it's like every time you walk through that door to do something new, it's like the gateway of like this is where you are in life, and that's a pretty cool thing. To
Oh,
have that of your own is awesome.
that's what's so cool about releasing music too. It's like this body of work for Electrified that was written in a short amount of time and recorded in a short amount of time, where we were kind of writing and playing a certain way, and then you get through that process and you put the record out, and then you get back together and you see what it sounds like, and I think that's a really beautiful process, and it's one I'm very fascinated by, but also paying attention to the things like what makes our band play good. Like oftentimes that means that we're in the same room playing together, or we're not one of those bands that responds well to having someone, like a producer belittle us or smash us into playing the take right. You know what I mean? Like we just like to hang out and make music, and I think that's something that you can hear on this Electrified album. It was mainly recorded at nighttime, and it was it was a very fun process, and honestly a product of having my studio set up the way that I have it set up.
I think with the new album, when you go from Shake the Roots to this, right? Shake the Roots is bare bones, right? It's predominantly, very it's not a lot of frills on it, right? Not to say that this is, but
Yeah,
there's more of like a little bit more power behind it. I mean, obviously you have the name of the album, Electrified, right? So it kind of
right.
fits. Shake the Roots is kind of that homage to the blues, the beginnings of that culture, beginnings of that genre. Where Electrified, I hear a lot more power. I hear a lot more, if I'm not mistaken, but fuzz in the playing too, which I know you do it very well, but I don't know if I've really heard that a lot in your playing before. I could be wrong, or the way you
Yeah,
used it.
yeah. There was and this goes back to just kind of me being just really inspired by sounds. I because I've been working on some music with Larkin Poe as well, and I went and built a whole new pedal board with new sounds that I'm not used to using. The things like, rather than just using the old pedal board that I always use, I kind of like to shake it up sometimes, and Graham, would come over and have a different amp or something, and a lot of times sounds inspire riffs, or sounds inspire a lyrical idea, or like if there's a guitar sound, Caleb might go, "Oh man, that would be really cool with a drums, like a dead tight drum sound like this, or a real open sound." And next thing you know, you got a song like "Shake You Down," and it's like full tilt. Here we go, baby. So um, yeah, we were definitely trying some new things with this record.
Yeah, you definitely hear it. I mean, with songs like Mona, which I absolutely totally dig. I love that tune.
Cool.
Yeah, your playing style is obviously it's you, but I really appreciated like the different textures that you went after with this.
Man, that's cool. I'm glad to hear you liked Mona. So that particular song was one of the first songs that we actually liked, because we had written a couple and recorded them, and then I would print roughs, and the band and I would be listening to the roughs, and we kind of said, "Oh man, this Mona song there's something to the way that we're playing and interacting with each other." And so that was the first song that we wrote that we actually decided to keep for the album. And, then by the time we were done with the record, I was like second guessing if Mona should even be on the record. And then like, I didn't listen to the songs or the album for a month after we mastered it pretty much. And And then I listened back to it and I was like, oh yeah, I really love this song. I was so close to it that I was like, by the time I finish a record, sometimes the perspective can be your perspective so blurry because you're so close to it that I was like, man, I don't know if any of this is good at all.
No, I thought it's just fantastic, and I love the growth from each album to the next too. I mean, I like the fact that you guys do kind of switch it up, and you do have a different perspective and a different way to go about it. That's playing wise. Was there a different way that you produced and engineered this too as well?
Yeah, I mean that's always kind of evolving, I think, you know. I mean, with each record I can listen through almost everything I've recorded and find things I love and find things that I don't love, you know, but really it's just trying to get the moments to sound as true and inspired as possible. So, you know, there were certain things that I did differently as far as like miking the drums, and you know, my room has also changed a little bit. You know, I've done a lot of work. I completely rebuilt my home studio probably, well, I guess right after we did the Blood Harmony record with Lark and Poe, and I really invested in like trying to make my space more inspiring for me to be in, because I was like, man, I'm sitting down here for 12 hours a day, sometimes more. This needs to be a space that I'm really excited to come to and work in. So I think that was really nice, just kind of to, you know, I upgraded my studio monitors so I could actually, I felt like I was able to hear what I was recording a lot better than I had been previously. And, you know, which is very exciting, but also a little bit daunting, because I got these speakers that I love so much, but they're not flattering at all. So, you know, that some of the things I thought I was doing well on previous records, it was like, you know, this curtain was lifted up and it's like, oh, actually the kick drum sounds like hot ass, you know, like maybe you should work on that a little bit, man. You know?
What about in just terms of, we talk about the approach and the influences. Was there anything different that you were listening to or the band was listening to that inspired anything?
Well, I mean, I I won't lie and say that, like, you know, I'm the Black Crowes have always been one of my favorite rock and roll bands, and Blackberry Smoke is one of my favorite current rock and roll bands. And you know, there were a couple times on this record where I would send a riff to Charlie from Blackberry and be like, "Am I ripping you off?" You know, and I straight up told Charlie, I was like, I'm jealous of you guys because you guys get to have great riffs, cool guitar parts, and also really just beautifully written songs. And I want that for my band. I want to be able to do that. And so I think just probably, you know, and we've been fortunate enough to tour with Blackberry Smoke, just being really inspired by the way that they kind of seem to have their cake and eat it too. You know, and the Crows are the same way. The Stones are the same way. It's just like good American rock and roll bands. And so we tried to incorporate some of those influences in songs like Trick Up My Sleeve or Movin', or Snake Oil. You know, I think like Snake Oil was inspired, you know, Rebecca and Meg and I were going to write and try and write a Larkin Poe tune. And Rebecca said, man, it'd be really cool to have like they had just confirmed a show with the Black Crowes. And she's like, it'd be so cool to have a Black Crowes influence song sometime. And so I kind of grabbed my acoustic guitar and wrote Snake Oil like right then and there. And she said, oh, that's cool. Like, what's that? And then we got together with Rebecca and Megan, and she said, oh, show us that Snake Oil idea you were doing. And at that point I'd already decided, I was like, I'm keeping that for the Shakedown.
Yeah, no, it's a great song, and "Trick Up My Sleeve" is one of my favorites too. I absolutely love that song too. Just the way it unfolds throughout is one of my favorites that I've listened to for the Electrified album.
Cool.
I just talked with Paul Jackson too. He did our 600th episode a couple weeks ago, and it was nice to talk with him because he's been on before, and we talked about Britt obviously passing away.
Yeah.
And just, the thing about Blackberry Smoke that makes them so great is they are truly like a family that just goes from one town to the next,
Yeah.
and just make great music, put on great shows. And not only do they do that, but they're also great at bringing out new younger bands out with them too as well.
Yeah.
Which is like because they brought you guys out at one point, and they,
Yeah.
I mean, Ida May, which is one of my favorites too, which is it's a husband and wife duo that's absolutely just awesome.
Oh, I love. So those are some of my best friends, the Ida May guys. And
Yeah,
Chris and I actually made a really interesting record together that is not what you would think, and that's all I'll say. But I have nothing but great things to say about Ida May and Blackberry Smoke, and I mean, those guys have just been so good to the Shakedown over the years. The Blackberry Camp, and like they've always treated us like family, and even whenever they did their last homecoming to Atlanta, and my wife's band was playing with them, and I went out, and Charlie was like, "Hey, get up and play with us," and we got up and did a Tom Petty tune, and it was so good to see Britt and get to play with him again, and they're always just like so, just so kind and warm, and I mean, if you find a better band to put on when the sun is shining, like let me know because I haven't. That's like anytime I turn my grill on, I turn Blackberry Smoke on at the same time because it's like they're made for each other. But
yeah. No, that is very true. Very good statement there because I agree. I mean, um, I try to see them anytime they're in Chicago. I have to go see them because they're just absolutely phenomenal live.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
never heard Charlie sing a bad note either. I mean, he's just he's just such an incredible singer and lyricist, and what they've got going with all the guitars and the way the keys play. That's something that the Shakedown doesn't have. We've never had keys. There's a couple moments on the record where we put some B3 in there just to kind of like fill out some parts, but yeah, I think what Blackberry's doing is just they're kind of, to me, they're carrying the torch of like the band. It's like the band, the Stones, the Crows, just sort of that blue collar American rock and roll that just makes you feel good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always tell people you got to see them live because they're fantastic. I always tell people whoever, that I love. I mean, whether it's you guys or whether it's whomever, Blackberry and I love the Black Moods and other bands too as well.
Yeah,
I mean, just there's this. That's the thing I think that is so. I think we live in an age where like good music is like pushed down, and I haven't been able to figure out why. Right? Like for the life of me, I'm, maybe it's this, and maybe it's that, and maybe it's everything, but it just seems like I think I've got a pretty good ear for music because I've been listening to it for 40 some years. Um, and I just like, and then I see something that's popular and I'm like, how is this popular? And how is that not? You know what I mean? And it's just, as a music fan, it's annoying. And I'm sure as an artist too, it can get on your nerves as well.
oh well, man. I think I used to ask myself a lot more questions about like why aren't we getting this, or why aren't we getting this opportunity, and oftentimes that I would just like wind myself up, and it would accomplish nothing, and so for me I kind of just have taken more of the stance of like I just need to do what I can do, and like if we can cultivate a grassroots audience that'll buy a record when we put it out, if we can make our records on our own, and then we can go out and tour, and we can count on Shakedown fans to come out, then to me that's sustainable, and that's a great way to make a living. When you asked me if I was like 16, I probably wanted to be a lot larger than I think I actually truly do want to be. I look at certain bands that have built up these these like really loyal fan bases. And I think a lot of times when you have, I mean, obviously like a lot of arena acts and stadium acts are like, they have loyal fans as well, but very few people stay at that type of level for as long as like AC/DC or Springsteen or the Stones or something like that, So for me, it's just about like, how do I get to play music for as long as I can in my life?
Well, I think the cool thing is about bands like yourselves and others is when you do have that grassroots growth with the audience, they stay your fans forever. They really do, because they appreciate your music, they appreciate what you guys do, and they want to support you. And I think sometimes when you get to that large arena act, you have your fans, you've got your core loyal fans because they do, but you also have a lot of just music consumers who just, will go, like the popular songs when they see a band live, they don't know half the songs, they just know the ones. And that's great to have those people there. I'm not discounting that at all or dismissing it. But especially with the new bands in rock over the last 15 years, when people come out to see you, they're coming out to see you because they love your music. They love
Yeah.
everything about you.
Yeah, man. And you know what? Bands are lucky to have fans like that, Like we just played Lexington, Kentucky the other night. And it was our first show in a while. And I felt very lucky to be able to look out and see people wearing Shakedown shirts singing along, and if I ever get in my head, about like, oh no, how does this verse go or something? Like, if I feel like I'm going to forget lyrics or start feeling anxious or something, I can like look out on most nights and see someone singing. And that's like, that feels like such a gift to me. Like that's such a luxury. And, and we make a very humble living making these records and going out and playing. But like, man, it's just such a cool way to get to, contribute to my family and do, I always think about, my dad worked in this factory for 37 years and I never heard him complain about it. So, if you catch me complaining about getting to play music for a living, call me out on it, because I feel pretty lucky to still be getting to play with like, my two best buds and making these records and learning more on how to do it independently. That's something that my wife really inspired me to kind of chase down, because like I was watching all they were doing with Larkin Poe and they were keeping so much of it in house. And so then by getting it more into recording and all of that, it sort of opened up this whole other way to be in love with music and a new way to be inspired, which then, we started Rattleshake Records like less than 2 years ago. Well, about 2 years ago. And this is our fourth release and we're working on other things for that label as well. So yeah, I'm really excited about it all.
What's the biggest difference for you when you record an album with a producer, an engineer, and they're trying to get the sound that they hear for you to play, versus you guys controlling everything and still being hard on yourselves? Because you mentioned the thing about the drums, sounding like dead ass or whatever the term you used. but when you do it yourself, you really have to have a standard set for yourself.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that don't, and it shows in the music that no one's in the room telling them that needs to sound better, or the lack of awareness of that needs to sound better, whatever it is. How do you maintain that level of standard for yourselves when you're the ones, poking you on the shoulder going, nuh-uh, that needs to be better?
Well, we're all pretty honest with each other, and it's it truly is a group effort. Caleb and Graham and I have been playing together for so long now that and we've lived so much life together, and a lot of it glamorous, most of it very unflattering. When you're in a van, in tiny hotel rooms, and you learn to be pretty honest with each other real quick. Hey, that guitar part is actually taking away. hey, that thing, that shaker that we just spent 30 minutes doing is actually completely worthless to this song. Like it sounds better when we mute it, like things like that, which, you could take personally. I think I'm proud of us for continuing to get better at communicating with each other and learning how to be more efficient and learning how to be more honest. And then as far as the sonics go, that's just, I hold myself to a very high standard when it comes to like what I'm working on, what I'm recording. Because it's, I want people to listen to records that I record and enjoy them. And most importantly, I want to listen to records I record and enjoy them. And I don't want to listen to them and think like, man, you shouldn't have let that slide. You should have pushed a little harder, so I'll spend hours and hours and hours, tweaking sounds when no one's around and playing with things. I'll set up drums and mic them up and record them, and then I'll tear them down and set them up a different way and try different things and move them around the room and put a mic in the stairway,
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases, unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business, you'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
At Ollie, we've got wellness down to a science. From PMS to pregnancy to menopause, our women's wellness line offers science-backed support for every stage. No judgment, no shame, none of the stigma. Just supplements designed to meet you wherever you're at. Ollie, choose science over shame. Find support at a retailer near you or on ollie.com. That's OLLY.com.
Hear that? That's now Crispy and McCrispy strips meeting creamy Caesar sauce. Sounds extra crispy. Caesar sauce at McDonald's for a limited time. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
different mic in the stairway, stuff like that. Just stuff that's like actually like kind of nerdy and not artistic at all. I suppose it's a little bit artistic, but I'm not creating anything. I'm just listening and observing and keeping notes and then when I find something I like, I'll leave it set up. And sometimes, like we on this Dirty Work EP we put out, which was our second release from Rattleshake, there was a song called Show Been Worse. And like at that time, we had a drum sound set up that we were using for the whole record. And I had set up a whole separate kit using very minimal mics, like 3 mics. And that was sort of just to kind of have a whole different sound that could potentially inspire something. And it inspired the Show Been Worse recording. So I just, there are really no rules, but kind of I'm just a tinkerer. I love to just tinker and kind of play with things until something excites me. And, that's kind of how I do it.
What about this album did you tinker with? What were some of the sounds that you were trying to hear and get that maybe were challenging to get, or that you heard in your head that you were trying to get as close to it or exactly what you heard in your mind? What were some of those moments like?
Oh, man. I would say there were a couple that could stand out. Like Graham's guitar on Trick Up My Sleeve was one that I love the way it ultimately ended up turning out. And we ended up recording it stereo through multiple amps so that we could make it wider sounding, because I'm kind of playing this really high lead line that's melodic, but it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. So when Graham came in, we had a great tone by, on paper, we're using the right mic, we're using the right amp, blah, blah, blah. But it just didn't sound like big and exciting and powerful to me. So we just kind of played with it until we found the right thing. And then we ended up finding what I think is the right sound for the song. And that felt really exciting to me, because otherwise I'll get in my bed and I'll just be thinking about it. I'll wake up and I'll be thinking about it, And there was another song called Happy Gets Made on the record that I love. And Graham had sent me an iPhone recording with like probably 10 guitar riffs in it. It was like 5 minutes long. And he just picked up a guitar that wasn't really even in tune, put his iPhone down and just started playing these riffs. Because I told him I thought we were missing a song. And the very first riff he played, somehow on that iPhone, sounded so cool. And I chopped that out of the audio file and I looped it for like, probably an hour. I had it going continuously for like an hour. And then I'm playing, with some drum beats, and I'm playing bass. And then next thing you know, I'm singing, and I started writing the lyrics for that song, Happy Gets Made, all to this loop of Graham's iPhone recording. So then, we try to re-record it, and it's like the vibe just wasn't the same, and I wanted to change the key of the song to better suit my voice. So I ended up taking his iPhone recording and pitching it up and adjusting the timing of it and all this stuff, and really kind of just turning it on its head, and we just kept it. So that's going throughout the whole song. That's Graham's whole part. He got off really easy on that one.
That's interesting. Because when you're recording and you're working out your songs and you're doing, the material and what you created, there's the writing aspect, and there's just the tone and the pitch and all these things that go into it. And you're basically serving the songs in the correct way by not just limiting what you think of the song by how it's being played, but also how it's sounding sonically.
Yeah, totally. And shout out to Graham for being willing to have his iPhone guitar make an album, and not sit there and play it all live, because we all kind of listened to it and we kept saying the same thing. Man, that sounds really cool. That's really interesting. And then we would all say the same thing. Should we redo it? Should we redo it? And it's like, well, we just said it was cool, so why would we redo it? And I think that was just sort of, a lot of times you get this thing like, oh, I should do it this way. This would be the proper way to do it. And really, there are no rules. It's just whatever works and whatever sounds cool, And then I put up, I was listening to it and going, okay, I'm going to sing it. And then I sang it. And then I was working with this artist, Ruthie Foster, and I had written another song to try and put on the Shakedown record. And then she started singing. I showed it to her and she started singing it. And it became very apparent to me that it needed to be her song, because once I heard her sing it, I was like, no way I'm singing that, because that's how that song should be sung. And so she took that song and we finished it. And she said, oh, well, I took one of your songs, so I should sing on one. If you got something you want me to sing on. And so I had her guest on Happy Gets Made, and that just took it to a whole other level. And yeah, I'm just so thrilled with. That's probably one of my favorite tunes on the album.
It is a great song. What about the approach with having Larkin Poe on it? I mean, I know you've had your wife on before, Rebecca, but I don't know if I might be mistaken, but I don't think you've had both of them on one song before.
Yeah, well, that was something. So we were at one point. I was on the bus with Larkin Poe, and Megan was like, "Dude, you always get Rebecca. Why don't you ever get me to play on something?" And I've honestly felt so stupid, because Megan is one of my favorite guitar players in the world. She's got such an unmistakable style, and she's so lyrical with what she plays. And I thought about it, and I told Megan, I said, I think I've never asked you to play on something because we honestly just have too much guitar on our songs already. Like, that's one thing that I don't think anyone's ever left a Shakedown show and said, oh, I wish there was more guitar. And so I wrote One and Lonely whenever they were out on the road, just as sort of like, I'm gonna send a sweet song to my wife. And then I started playing some slide on it, and I thought, oh my gosh, this would be perfect for Megan to come harmonize slide on, because we've played together so much at this point where we are able to kind of complement each other's playing in a cool way. And I love what she played so much on that tune.
Yeah, I got a story to tell you. One of my friends saw you guys at Beach Life last year.
Oh yeah.
In Redondo, and he'd never seen you guys before. And I told him, because he lives in Manhattan Beach, which is a neighboring town of Redondo. And I go, you got to go see Tyler Bryant. You got to go see. And he called me like right after you guys are done. He goes, dude, that was fucking incredible. He goes, holy shit, that was awesome. And he used to be in a band that I used to live with. In my early 20s, I lived with a rock band.
Cool.
And he was in this, Chicago area band. They were a hard rock band. And he was just like, man, that was the goods. That was totally awesome. So I was happy that he appreciated you guys and liked it.
Yeah, man, I remember that Beach Life show. That was such a fun show.
That was a good bill too. I think Blackberry Smoke was on that too as well.
Yeah, Blackberry was there. Yeah. Larkin Poe was on it. Bunch of friends. Shooter was there. We saw a bunch of friends.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about touring with this new album? What's in store for you guys?
Oh, well, we're in Huntsville, Alabama, coming up on Friday, and then we're doing the release show in Nashville on Saturday night, and then we're off to like Raleigh. We're doing Charlotte, Atlanta, Charleston, and then we've got a bunch of other shows coming up, and then more shows to announce throughout the year. So I'm excited. We're kind of planning a little press trip to Europe and the UK to go and sort of, because we haven't been over there in a second, post COVID, we've only been over one time. So it's, we got to get back over there. But yeah, I think there's going to be quite a few shows this year.
That's awesome. The last show I saw you guys, I think was the Reggie show in Chicago. Yeah. That was a fantastic show.
Yeah. I had a blast. That night. I went over to, Chess that day.
That's what you were telling me after the show. That was awesome. That's got to be a great experience.
Oh my gosh, so cool. They had this Muddy Waters tour jacket in there that I was like, oh my gosh, dude, I would sell just about anything to get that thing. But what a cool spot.
Yeah, there was a band that came to Chicago that wanted me to take them to Muddy Waters' house.
Really?
It's like a historic monument. And all I said to them was, yeah, no, that's in a horrible area, and we basically need a police escort to go in there. It's kind of a shame that something like that cannot be like more accessible to the public. But yeah, it's just in one of the worst areas of the city.
Oh yeah. You kind of got to be careful with that.
Yeah,
we found ourselves in some pretty sketchy situations at times on the road where you're new in a place, you don't quite know the lay of the land. You're like, oh yeah, there's a spot, a couple miles from here. Let's just walk there.
No, but I wish it was. Like I said, I'd love to go there. I've never been there, to see Muddy Waters' house and where he grew up and everything, and that would be awesome. Of course, Buddy still does his residency. Buddy Guy still does his residency stuff in December, January, I think, of every year, and that's always awesome to see. But yeah, anyone who's listening who has a chance to go see like Chess Records or, Buddy's Place or anything that has to do with Chicago blues, highly recommend that they do it. Because it's just, it's such a important piece of music. And I did a show with Andrew Daly from Guitar World about, Buddy Guy back in, I think, November. And for those that don't appreciate him, if Buddy Guy is not in the equation, music that we know sounds completely different.
Oh yeah,
it's that important. It really is that important.
Man, Buddy's such a legend. I remember getting my first Buddy Guy record as a kid, and just there were a couple records that I can think it was Buddy Guy, Johnny Winter, Albert King, Muddy Waters. Freddie King. Those pretty standard fare for, some of the blues legends. But like when you're hearing that stuff for the first time as a kid, I would listen to that stuff like It's like if you haven't had a drink of water, in 4 days and you're getting to drink water, like that's how it felt listening to Buddy Guy to me when I was a kid. It still does. That's what's so cool about it, is it's just he's such a powerful player and singer. I have a funny story for you. We played down in Gainesville, Florida, and Caleb, the drummer of the Shakedown, and I were like, let's go see Tom Petty's childhood home. So we looked up the address, and a family lives there now. And because I could see creepily, I could see they had the windows open. They were making dinner, and but Caleb and I were laughing because we were about 3 miles from the location where it was about 3 miles from the venue that we were at. And so we were like, oh, let's Uber. And the Ubers were super expensive for some reason. And we walked outside the venue, and those bird scooters were out there, and I always make fun of people on those. And like, anytime I see a grown man riding one downtown Nashville, like cutting off traffic and stuff, I just go, I can't take you seriously, man, which I know some people use them to get to work and all that. But I think I have a little bit of a problem with them because people used to just leave them in my yard. But anyways, we hopped on these damn bird scooters and, hauled ourselves across Gainesville to Tom Petty's childhood home. And I was just thinking, as we were riding down the street, Tom Petty's old street, I was like, oh man, I hope the ghost of Tom Petty isn't looking down, watching us ride these stupid bird scooters.
That's funny you mentioned those scooters, because when they first came out, I remember I think I was with my son in Milwaukee, and I'm walking and I'm like, why are these random scooters just all over the city? Like they weren't like parked in like a designated area. They were just like left in front of a building, or, and I'm like, what's the deal with all these scooters just being randomly across the whole, the city? Because I was unaware that this was a new thing. And then I looked it up when I got to the hotel room. I'm like, why are there scooters in Milwaukee?
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a kind of a, old crotchety man moment for myself.
Oh, I've had so many of those, and I won't lie, I had a blast cruising around Gainesville on those things, but it was just funny to me, because you would think like, oh, we're gonna roll up and it just I felt disrespectful, like cruising up to Tom Petty's house on a bird scooter.
I wonder how many times people have actually just stood out in front of the guy's house or those people's houses and just like, oh, there's another Tom Petty fan out in front of the house now.
Oh, I'm sure it happens all the time, and I can only imagine. But it is cool to go and imagine some of these people like Tom or Muddy, and like that was what was so cool about being in Chess Records, is thinking, oh man, this is where it went down. This is where Willie Dixon played that bass, and this is where Muddy sang that tune. But I think, like, I was talking with Ruthie Foster, who I've been working with, and I'm just so amazed by her voice and her talent. And we were talking, she was mentioning how inspired she was by my space here, my home studio, and how she thought it had really influenced the recordings, and I think it did. But I was also like, man, you would sound good anywhere, and that's the thing with Tom or Muddy. Like, those guys just had that thing that, of course, where you grow up and all that is like a huge influence on you. But you kind of wonder, like, would they have found a way regardless,
Do you find yourself chasing that, like what you just said, like wherever they play, they sound good? I mean, you guys sound great live, but I just know from this conversation that what you're telling me is like, you do have a standard for yourself. Are you always kind of chasing that, where like you guys can play in any room and it just sounds like you want it to sound?
Oh, we try to, I mean, sometimes we're just simply too loud, but that's just the nature of rock and roll. I still like rock and roll to be loud. I don't want to go to a rock show and be able to talk to the person next to me. I want to be at the rock show and feel like I'm getting a bath in the sound. That's what I love about, what I loved about going out and hearing AC/DC every night. That was like, you knew what was going on. And, we still use real amps. A lot of rock bands these days are using, amp modelers and stuff, and to like have a better front of house sound, a more balanced, quote unquote, balanced front of house sound. And, I think we're kind of still a little prehistoric in our approach with how we tour and play live. And, but we do that because we like that, and that's what we kind of believe in. It's a school that we came up with, and we still respect that tradition.
I agree. And that's one of the reasons why I love your band so much, is because of that authenticity. There is a company. I'm gonna tell you a story. It's not really a story, but just something that annoys me about the music industry today. There's a company, the German company, that's headquartered in Chicago called Kemper, and they build these modulators for guitar.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with them.
Yeah. And the reason why they're headquartered in Chicago is because Chicago has been deemed the cover band capital of the country, which annoys the shit out of me just in that sense as well, because I have a tough time with cover bands. I really do. So what I think of this when I hear this story of this company that's here in Chicago and in the Midwest is these cover bands, instead of like, or any new guitar player, different guitar players, not just cover bands, but instead of chasing tone, they're just kind of plugging in. And if they want the Eddie Van Halen Brown sound of 1982, they got it. If they want the Neil Schon sound of 1979 on the Departure album, they got it. And it's like, that is not authentic. That's fake as day. And it annoys the shit out of me.
Man, I kind of I can understand that. And, I've gotten a lot of, companies sending me pedals and stuff like, this is an amp pedal. It sounds just like a Marshall, or this is a pedal that sounds just like a Fender Deluxe and stuff. And, they sound great. Like a lot of them, they sound so great. But the only reason I haven't been able to use them live is because they don't move air. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds great. Like, and I have this road case that I carry with me everywhere when I'm on the road, called the Idea Farm. It has a piece of gaff tape on it, a sticker of a great white shark, and on the gaff tape it says Idea Farm, dressing room, hotel. And in that I have, a piece of gear that will stimulate a bunch of different amps, so that when I'm in my hotel with my headphones on, I can still play guitar and have a sound that would be good. And I mean, I've done recording sessions with it before, and no one's said like it doesn't sound good. But for like a live rock show, man, I do believe there is something that happens when you've got an amp. That's because, I've also stood side stage at certain shows where everyone is using amp simulators or emulators, and all you hear side stage is the drums, and that's not a fun show to hear. Just hearing cymbals and snare and no guitars. And I don't know. I like loud guitar amps. I know it works for some people, and that's great. And, more power to them. They're carrying a lot less and probably getting to spend more time, at the bar after the show or whatever. But I just love loud amps. There's nothing quite like, whenever we went out on that rocker bus tour with AC/DC, I took 200 watt full stacks, and everyone was like, dude, this is so overkill. And I said, yeah, but what other opportunity are you going to get to use this type of rig? Look, we're on tour with AC/DC, man. Angus is using like 13 of these. 2 of these is so like, this is modest, And, man, I tell you what, standing in front of that and hitting an A chord, just like, it made me feel like king of the world or something, and I love that. When I go hear a band, I want to hear the band from the stage, and I want to hear the PA enhancing that. And I love it, man. I think especially with rock and roll, the type of rock and roll that that we do, it's important to me, at least, maybe someone will prove me wrong in the future, but I like it.
Well, I think it's because we live in a day and age where everything is technology based, right? And I think there's a lot of advantages and a lot of great things about technology, but I also think it loses authentic sound, authenticity. I think it loses the organic feel. I think it loses the discovery. I think technology in a way can expand certain things, but I also believe it throttles discovery. Just because you become too reliant on it. Whereas like
Yeah.
with the amps and the moving sound and moving air and everything, I mean, when you stand in front of an amp and you hear the A chord, when you're in the crowd, man, it hits you right in the chest, right? It hits
Yeah.
you right in the gut, and that's part of the attitude of the music that you play and the music that we know and love.
Yeah. Well,
So
you think about guys like Hendrix and stuff, like this. He was using the new technology to his advantage and doing things that people weren't doing, with like panning and relay delays and reverses and stuff like that. Um, so it's like, and there are bands that I love and respect that are using some of the new like guitar technology in really creative ways, and it works for them. And just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean it's not, like, there's no merit to it. There's this one company called Universal Audio that makes a lot of gear that I've been really inspired by, and they make this thing called the Aux Box, which, it's like a cabinet simulator. So you're still using a real amp head. And I've used that in conjunction with my actual stage rig before for recording shows. Like if we're in a small room or something, then I can send that directly to, whoever's recording the show, and it'll be a really great guitar sound, but it's still my amps, and it's still my amps are reacting with my hands. Cause that's something that I've felt with certain pieces of gear, is when I play it, I'm not getting that reaction where, if you plug into like a loud Marshall amp or something and you stand in front of it, you can kind of feel your guitar wanting to talk, or wanting to squeal or some of that. And that's, to me, I like that. Whenever we get to a venue, I always walk around the stage and I find the spots where the guitar and the amp are talking to each other, and just make a note. I'm going to run to that spot and turn my body this way, and then I can hold this note until they turn the house lights on if I want to, like I think that's exciting, but to each his own.
I find that exciting too as well. I love that stuff. That to me is just where it's at. That because it's so embodies what the player is about in those moments, and what the sound is about, and what the whole presentation is about. And I love that you walk around the stage and you find those areas, those soft spots, if you want to call it that, where like if you stand there during the show, you can do whatever the hell you want to do with your guitar and the amp.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a big reason why we called this album Electrified is because we were using so much of this old tube gear from the 50s and 60s, like from, Ampex or this Gates radio console that came from Chicago. And it's like, man, this stuff is like, it's like having a heater on in the control room, so many tubes and the transformers, and they're noisy, but they're beautiful and full sounding. And, that's kind of, on the back of the record, we have this whole, little write up about what it means to us. And it's like, there's something on here that says, in a fast moving, increasingly digital world, vintage tube gear is considered obsolete by the majority, but for those still living on the fringes of time, there's a quality of magic when pieces of gear from a different age power up. The dim glow of vacuum tubes purposefully burning and generating heat in the close quarters of a control room. And it goes on and on, but we were really inspired by the sounds that come out of this equipment. And, the equipment obviously doesn't make the sounds, and it doesn't make the songs, or doesn't create the performance. But when it's all working together and you can kind of just use it to capture the moment, that's what's exciting. And you know, where I'm at in my journey, I'm inspired by this stuff right now, and it kind of led us to capture these moments on Electrified. So I can't wait for people to hear it.
You certainly did capture the moment. It's a fantastic album, a fantastic record, full of great songs. I think it's your best one yet.
Thanks.
So I do appreciate the time, and I do appreciate you talking about it.
Man, always great to see you, and thank you for, you know, flying the flag for the Shakedown and representing Rattleshake. And, you know, I can't wait. I hope you'll come out next time we're in Chicago and
absolutely.
hang out.
Absolutely. That's a promise right there. So everyone, that is Tyler Bryant from Tyler Bryant The Shakedown. I am Jay Scott. This has been another episode of The Hook Rocks. All of Tyler Bryant and The Shakedown links will be in the show notes. So when you're done listening, click on those links, all the social media, where to get the album, all that good stuff will be in there. And please click on that stuff and support a great independent band. Once again, thank you very much. Take care of each other, and we will talk soon. Thank you.
What TJ Maxx dragged in.
The Devil Wears Prada 2 is now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
We are digital, we are downloadable, we are streamable.
The fashion event of the year is certified fresh.
Pull yourself together, we have work to do.
Critics say it's smart and witty and the perfect sequel.
That's all.
Get runway ready for The Devil Wears Prada 2 on Disney Plus and Hulu. Rated PG-13.
At ZocDoc, we know being a healthy adult is like living in a video game. Every day has side quests, taxes, laundry, birthdays. And just when you're leveling up, you have to book a doctor. The insurance portal crashes. They put you on hold. Your doctor doesn't take your plan. Game over. We see you. So we made booking a doctor easy. Download ZocDoc. Search by specialty, insurance, and availability. Book instantly. No cheat codes required. Find a doctor you love with ZocDoc.
This episode is brought to you by ChatGPT. Hey, it's Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast. Have you guys heard about ChatGPT work? It's the new way to use ChatGPT for bigger multi-step projects. And when you need more than just answers, give ChatGPT work access to your apps and files, and it can create real work documents like spreadsheets, slides, and structured reports. Get started at chatgpt.com by selecting work mode, available on Plus and Pro plans.